Hey, how's everybody? We'll see how this works out. I'm shaking like crazy. I'm about used up already, so we'll see. Here's the problem. I don't know how many of you guys know. About a month ago, I had a heart attack, and that was my second one. So, third time's a charm. I almost got it down. But I'm supposed to be off not doing things for 6 weeks, but that sounds stupid, so I'm going to give this a shot. The problem with it is that, I don't know if any of you guys have ever been through this, but my thought process don't work like it used to yet. I'm not all back to speed, so like, I'll be in the middle of a conversation and forget what we were talking about. So if I skip, just go with it. Just act like it's completely natural. And given my track record, it probably is. So what we're going to start talking about today, because who knows where it's going to go, what we're going to start talking about today is one life. We've been doing this series called One, and I don't know, I'm probably going to wrap it up today unless something else happens this week, and then we won't, but, one life. One thing I've found out recently is that we only have one life to live here. We only got one shot at this, right? And whenever you have an incident, you start thinking through things with a little different perspective, right? Anybody ever been like in a car crash or in a near life, a near fatality state maybe, or maybe you've been diagnosed with cancer, or maybe you've lost someone close to you? What it does is it changes your perspective on life, doesn't it? Like things that you once thought were extremely important start to be a whole lot less important. And what I want to talk about today is how can we best possibly use this one life we've been given. I was reading, see, my mind just quit. I was reading something. I was reading ESPN magazine, and it was talking about athletes of faith that you may not have known were athletes of faith. And it wasn't Christian specific. It had there were Muslims and Buddhists and some Christians. But one of them that struck me was Mariano Rivera. Y'all know who Mariano Rivera was? He was a closer, like one of the best closers that's ever pitched in baseball, and he played for the New York Yankees forever. And I didn't know this about Mariano Rivera, but after all the fame and after all the things he went through, what he did when he quit baseball was he said he was going to start a church in Panama, where he's from. And he said because fame and fortune in baseball wasn't life, that Jesus was life, and that he thought the people that were from where he was from needed to know why he was the way he was. I thought, now that is a guy who's got perspective on life. Another guy that was listed was Deion Sanders. And Deion's a little flashier, so he's more out there. But one of the things that got me about Deion was that he said that he had had it all. Like he had had all the fame you can have. I mean, he was a professional football player and one of the best at that. He was a professional baseball player at the same time and extremely good at that. One time I got to see him play and he got a bunt single and he got on first. Then he stole second, stole third, and stole home. I mean, it's just not natural. He was an exceptional athlete. He was prime time. And everything that power or fame could bring, he had. Everything that money could bring, he had. He was all about the bling. I'm not sure that that's changed a whole lot, but he was all about the bling. He said that he could have any woman he wanted. Women were just nonstop. It was a lifestyle and a pursuit of things. And he said one day he came to a realization that he could never catch what he was chasing. Like he was looking for life, and he thought that fame would get him there, and it never did. So he had to push and become more famous, and so he got more outrageous and more known, and it didn't cut it for him, and money didn't cut it for him, and women didn't cut it for him. And he said that what he found out was that Jesus was the only way to have life. Like there was no other life anywhere else, and he had tried it all. And so now he's married, he's got a family of his own, he's raising kids. But his priority in life and his realization of what life is that there is no life outside of God. And I think that's the true story for a lot of people, and that's a true story for me. I find out that there is no life outside of God. I also read in my Bible that there is no way to God except through the cross of Jesus. You realize that, we always say, well, Jesus, what was the point of the cross? Well, Jesus died for my sins. And that's where we've been taught since we were little kids. Jesus died for my sins. I'm sorry, guys, but it's not really true. I mean, that your sin was taken care of on the cross. But Jesus gave his life that you could have life. He didn't give his life so you could have a get-out-of-jail-free card so you could go try to pursue life however you wanted to. That makes no sense at all. Jesus gave his life so that we could have life. He says that he is the way, the truth, and the life. There's one life, one way to that life. And he says no one comes to the Father or comes into the Father except through me. Like there is no other way to life. This writer John in the New Testament, when he starts writing his gospel, he says that the light had come into the world. And Jesus was the light. And he says that light gives life, or he says it in some translations, it's like this: that light enlightens everyone. So we look at it and say, how can light give life? But in truth, light enlightens us to be able to see and choose and walk in the path that gives life, correct? So this Jesus, this life in Jesus is given to us because of the light. Now, I think it's funny that without light, there is no life. Right? I mean, not to get into your science classes, but like, put your plants in a dark closet. What happens? Now, my dad can grow plants like nobody I've ever seen. He can grow anything. But I know a little something about killing things. And here's what I found is that when you keep your plants in the dark, they die, right? I mean, anybody experienced that? So we understand that there's just a law, a truth, that light gives life. So I want to kind of look at this idea of the light being life-giving. And I want to start in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. And this may be odd, but we've probably all read this. Anybody know Genesis 1:1? In the beginning, it's in the beginning of the Bible, and it starts out in the beginning, so it's easy to remember. That's how I remember it. In the beginning, it says that God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God, and God is Spirit, right? Yeah, God is Spirit. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. Now, here's the thing: if you grew up in church or in the South, in the ye old Bible Belt, then you've heard this and you've read this, and you've probably argued and fought over these verses with people, correct? Because those science people, you know how they are. One of the things I think we do by arguing is we shut down and quit learning, and I think that's a problem. I think that if we're pursuing God, that He is always moving because He's always wanting us to move. He's always growing us and stretching us and reaching, making us reach further. And so as I have pursued God in my life, I've come to an understanding or another way of looking at this. And let me tell you, one of the problems Christianity has with its presentation of the gospel is that we're dogmatic. We're right and everybody else is wrong, so let's face it, right? I mean, that's just a fact. And you can't argue with facts, even if you're the one making them facts. But we go into this and we say, well, it's this way and it has to be this way and it's literal and everything's literal. But what I've come to see is that rarely is anything in the Bible as literal as it looks on the surface. And I'm not saying it's not literal. It can be literal. But I believe there's a whole lot more going on than what's written. For instance, this thing starts out, it says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form. Well, then what the heck did He create? Right? It's without form. Well, what I would call earth seems to have form. Now, not that I can have scope or perspective, but I've seen a globe and it looks round. What would an earth look like that was formless? As you read through the Bible, you start to see terms that are used a lot, and as you put a bunch of stuff together, and you have to read the whole thing, guys. Your daily Bible verse on your calendar, that's not going to cut it. You're not going to get it. You have to have the full scope of the whole thing. This isn't a verse book. This thing was written, it wasn't even written with verses. This is a whole story. Some say Genesis actually is a poem. And I would agree with that. I can see the perspective of that. So God said, God in the beginning, like in the beginning, and you got to understand, God is without beginnings. So I think these words are to put it in scope that we can even start to grasp. Like, we need a starting place. Because even when we say it's forever, we can't get the scope of that without putting limits on it, right? So it starts out in the beginning, or at the start of things, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, what was that? Well, as you read through, you start to see that the heavens was a reference to the spiritual realm. And that when you read about the earth in the Bible, those are references to the physical realm. And so in the beginning, God creates a spiritual realm and a physical realm. Now, we know these two realms are realities, right? So we can say that's truth, correct? Because we understand that there's more to me than you can see. And there's more to you than I can see. So we would agree and we could testify that there is a spiritual and a physical at work. Correct? Good. I'm glad somebody's with me. All right, so we see this creation take place of this physical and this spiritual. And God was hovering over the face of the waters. Now, I could go off here for a while, but we're not going to go that deep into this. Just understand that throughout the whole Bible, the waters were very representative, kind of a type and shadow of the word, and word, you have to understand, word is more than the language in which I speak. That word is my will communicated. Correct? So like I use words to communicate what's unseen, to paint a tangible picture to what we can't understand just by beaming my thoughts to you. Like if I just stood here and did this, no good. Because you'd be like, what's wrong with him? He's seasoned out. And all I'm trying to do is communicate my thoughts to you. So it becomes easier to use word, and when our words flow, it flows like a river, living waters. It's water, so the words of God. So you have the Spirit of God hovering in the will of God in both the physical and spiritual realms. See how different the Bible looks? But then God says something just insanely crazy. Let there be light. Why do you think he said that first? Because without light, there is no life. The essential creation that has to be number one has to be light, because light precedes life. Without light, there is no life. So God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, and it was what? Good. And God did what? He separated, divided the light from the darkness. One thing I've found out in my physics experiments is that when you have darkness and you shine a light into it, it separates itself. Right? Okay, now get this. This is something I want to pose a question to you. And God called the light day. Look at that day. Weird, huh? And the darkness he called, that's weird too, right? Anybody see anything? It's capital, as in like a proper noun. Now, what are nouns? Person, place, or thing. And when they're proper, it is a specific person, place, or thing. It is a name, right? So he names the light, day, and the darkness he calls night. And then there was evening and morning, and right here, just a side note, this is why the Jewish day starts at sundown, because there was evening, then morning, and that was the first day, right? We say morning, then night. This is not the way it works, as we learned Easter, right? A couple Easters back. On Good Wednesday of Easter. And there was evening and morning, and it was the first day. And God said, let there be expanse in the midst of the waters. Okay, I'm not going to read all this to you because I'm going to skip down. You got to go back and read this and go, what just really is going on here? It's exciting, man. I mean, like it's more exciting than just like on the first day God created. Get this, though. How many of you guys have been in a science class? Most of you. Me too. We generally know where light comes from, though, right? All right, generally. I knew that. I'm looking for my place. I had it underlined. That's why I couldn't see it. I want to skip down to verse 14. Can we skip to 14? Verse 14, it says this. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be signs and for seasons and for days and for years, right? What are these lights in the sky? The sun. Like, go on the next verse. It says, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give them light upon the earth. And it was so. I think, okay, go to the next one, 16. And God made two great lights, and the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. And He made them and He made the stars also. Okay, first of all, let me shut down some of your dogmatic arguments. Okay, the moon doesn't put off light. All right? So don't be so dogmatic or somebody's going to tear you up. Like somebody who don't even know anything, just thinking, going, you know, the moon really don't put off light, so the Bible can't be correct. Right? Am I lying? Okay, the moon doesn't put off light. And the sun that we get light by day, it's actually a star too, right? All right, I just want to check. Now here's my question. See, I have these questions and it bugs me all the time. Because the first thing God said in verse 3 was, let there be light. But it wasn't until the fourth day that we had sun, moon, stars. Right? Is anybody picking up a problem? What the heck was the first day? God was a light, right? He was the source of light. But He says, let there be light. And He separated the light from the darkness. And the light He called, or He named the light day. And He named the darkness night. Could it be possible that the first day good and evil came about? And the two were separated. And that separation seems to have something to do with the verse before it, where the Spirit was hovering in the waters. There's something about the Word of God that separates the day, capital D, and the night, capital N, the good and the evil, right? So where does it come from? From in the beginning, there was light. And the light gives life. And in the beginning, there was darkness. And there was no life in the darkness. And God separated the two, life and death. And we still understand that life and death are different, right? Wow, so as we start to really process this, and as we start to break this down, we see that there is a physical and a spiritual realm, and there is good and evil. You know, and we go on and we see the earth, the physical world. We see it start to take shape in throughout creation. Now, I'm not an evolutionist. I don't feel like I came from monkeys. Feel that way. But also at the same time, we are evolving, correct? I mean, like, I can understand that we are more advanced than the cavemen were. Wouldn't you say we are more evolved? So when we start to argue these things out, be very careful not to be too dogmatic, because there are a lot of sides to these coins. I'm a creationist. I believe that in the beginning, God is all I needed to know. And that the bang or the evolvement from that point has happened over time, and I understand that. Don't be too literal, because we start to understand that some things in this first part of the Bible can't be true, like literally true. You can't have light created. Where is it coming from? How is light and darkness separated? So you have these things, and you have other problems, right? One of these is theory of relativity. Okay? And what I'm saying this is it ever dark? I mean, let's be honest. Is it ever dark? Depends where you're standing, right? It's not like God goes, okay, it's day, it's not, it's day, it's not, right? We understand how things work. It's not like the sun goes out. So we have to look and go, if it's not how the world works, then there has to be another truth going on here. And one is, that truth is that there is no life outside of the light. And the light is always on. But there is a separation of light and darkness. There is a place we go to when we don't want to be in the light. I have these windows in my bedroom. As Jason can tell you, I've been complaining about these windows for years. I don't know why anybody would put windows in their bedroom. This was not the smartest idea ever. Because when I get ready to go to bed, I want it capital N night. I mean, I want it pitch black, dark, like you can't tell if you're awake, asleep, dead, or alive. But I got 47 windows in my bedroom. And I live on a hilltop where the moon is bright as the sun. And there is no amount of curtains or shade. I've got some plywood I'm thinking about building new shades out of. There is a time we want to be in the dark, isn't there? And it seems to me that we can always find the darkness when we want to. God created the spiritual realm and the physical realm. God created the light out of the darkness. I like it that way. People are like, you mean God created evil? God separated good from evil. The light shines through the darkness. You don't have to create darkness. Darkness happens. Light is energy, right? The sun is energy, and it puts out light into the darkness. Stars are energy. So energy puts out life, and light will always, and I say that and somebody's going to go, what about a black hole? Outside of a black hole, light will always extinguish darkness, and darkness can't extinguish light. Now, why do I tell you this? Because I think we have to understand what it is that we want when we get serious about this one life we've been given. We want it to count, right? And for our life to matter, for our life to make sense, and truly in every sense of the word, for our life to really exist, it has to be light. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like a life without light never really existed. This is what Mariana Rivera found. This is what Deion Sanders found. This is what I found. Is that I was living life in darkness. And what I found that is a life lived in darkness is death. No life. But life lived in the light is life. And here's the thing, that light gives life to everyone. So when we come into the light and we're made alive, then what makes our lives matter is the enlightenment of the world around us. The light shining out into the darkness. So our lives are never going to make sense. We're never going to have meaning, purpose. We're never going to have fulfillment or satisfaction in life as long as, Jesus put it like this, as long as we put it under a bushel. Don't let Satan blow it out. Let it shine. Remember that? We learned that when we were kids, but what do? We get enlightened, we receive the light, and then we're like, well, that's good for me. I don't need to be no light. But if we do that, we truly don't live. I'm a huge fan of President George Bush Sr., H.W. Bush. And in his acceptance speech to his nomination to run for president, there was a line written in his speech that says, in effect, that we need to be 1,000 points of light. And if you've ever seen Saturday Night Live, you've seen this skit about the 1,000 points of light. You've seen it, yeah. So, but here's the point behind President Bush's thinking. He truly, with everything inside of him, believed that light comes from God. And that light in us should be shined out. And that the only way the world can ever be good, and the only way that the world can ever function like it was intended to function, and the only way that we can have life is that when 1,000 points, that we become 1,000 points of light. That we shine out. And when you read his speech and when you see what he says, he's talking about the organizations in our world, like the nonprofits and people. And he's talking about people helping people make life make sense. Because what George Bush got was that it's not the government that will ever make life for people, that it's you and me. And when we use our light to enlighten others, it becomes 1,000 points of light. And the more light that is shared and the more light that is given, the world starts to look different. The world starts to change, and everybody starts to feel and sense that God is real and that the kingdom of heaven is among us. And this is what it starts to look like. So my life will never be worth anything unless I'm giving, unless I'm shining out. Because once I cut the light down, once I mask it, once I cut it off, then it's just in darkness again. And maybe we think, oh, darkness is evil. Well, maybe it's not as simple as good and bad. Maybe it's more like life and death. Because I can be a moral person, I can be a good person and still not shine out, not be a light, not make life better for those around me. See, I think this is me, and this is what this church is about. Well, because I started it. We used to have this on everything. Making life better. That's what it comes down to. My life will only be life when I'm making your life better. And your life will only be life when you're making life better for those around you. See, the capital D, the day in us, needs to enlighten or be daylight that shines to others. Jesus went in this whole spiel too. He said, darkness, if you want to live in darkness, you'll run to the darkness. You'll flee from the light. So when you're shining out, trust me, you're going to polarize. You're going to make people flee. They're going to run. That's all right. It's all right. Because what we're called to is to make life better, to do everything within our power and use all the resources that we've been given to be light for others. That's what we're called to. Life. We're called to be and give life. And if I'm not giving life, then I'm not really living. How does it look? I mean, some of you are probably sitting there and go, yeah, but how does that work? I can't give you like, if we want to be a religion, we'd say here, all you have to do now is, and that's what religion has turned it into. But then our light looks more like hate, because then we're against everything and everybody. But the light that I have and the light that I give is life-giving. It's like, I see you struggling, so I help you with whatever resources I have. You say, well, I don't have anything. You'd be surprised what you have. We all have something. God did not give you light so you could say, I don't got nothing. You have life, give it. You know, I've been accused of not smiling enough. And people think I'm mad or angry or whatever. Just a deep thinker. You know, sometimes what people need is a smile. Not a sarcastic one, though, because I did that. This guy was driving like, and I just smiled at him, and then he got like angry. Or sometimes you gotta work it in at just the right time. But you know, we've got to give away what we've been given, man. You got life, and it's good. It's good. Yeah, bad things happen, but we've got life, and it's good. And we got to share that. People don't want to join a religion, but man, they really like to have a better life. That's what we need to give away. That's what we've got to understand. This whole thing is about me making your life better. We making their lives better. Do you understand? And when we do that, we can enter in. All right, you guys stand up with me. I want to pray for you before we leave.